My dear brothers and sisters, in times of uncertainty, many turn to the question of who will come next, forgetting first to ask, what must be upheld. For it is not the man who matters most, it is the mantle. The role, the burden, and the responsibility of guardianship over a nation that has walked through revolution, war, sanctions, and global isolation with its head held high. The future is never built on curiosity alone, it is built on understanding. And so before asking who shall wear the black turban tomorrow, one must ask, what is the true weight of the office that must be carried? This station, this guardianship, is not simply a political seat. It is not something won through slogans or parades. It is a sacred trust. The supreme leader is not merely a guide in affairs of governance, he is the protector of the path laid down by the martyrs of our revolution. He is the embodiment of resistance, the custodian of justice, and the final shield between this nation and those who wish to see it divided, secularized, and silenced. Leadership in our Islamic system is unlike that of the West. There, a ruler rises with popularity and falls with polls. Here, we answer not to fleeting opinion, but to eternal duty. The supreme leader is not elected by the noise of the street or the spin of media, he is chosen through divine clarity, through knowledge, through piety, and through his unwavering service to the principles of Islamic justice. He must fear God more than he fears sanctions. He must walk humbly among the people but stand like a mountain before the enemies of this nation. To lead this republic is not to dictate from a throne, it is to kneel in prayer for the oppressed. It is to lose sleep over the hunger of the poor in Sistan, to grieve for the martyrs in Palestine, to think not of how history will remember your name, but how God will weigh your deeds. The office does not belong to a family, nor to a faction. It belongs to the Ummah. It is not a dynasty passed from father to son. It is a fire, and only one whose heart is already burning with truth and endurance can survive its heat. The position demands not only sharp intellect and deep knowledge of Islamic jurisprudence, but an unwavering resistance to arrogance, to corruption, and to the influence of global imperialism. Some may believe that to rule is to command armies and sign decrees. But the truest leadership is quiet. It is in the hours before dawn, when decisions are made not with applause, but with tears. When a nation looks for guidance, it does not need another politician. It needs a man who understands the Quran not only with his mind, but with his life. A man whose pulse beats with the love of the Prophet's household, whose strength lies not in weapons, but in unwavering moral clarity. This position bears the pain of every family who lost a son to war. It carries the dignity of every woman who wears her hijab with courage in the face of mockery. It shoulders the expectations of every child who looks to this flag and dreams not of exile, but of pride. It must not bend to foreign pressure. It must not flirt with westernization disguised as reform. The one who steps forward must remember always, the goal is not to be loved by the world, but to be accountable before the Almighty. And yes, there are systems and structures, there is the assembly of experts, the guardian council, the armed forces, the seminaries, the youth. But all of them look to the leader not for power, but for stability. For clarity. For moral compass. When the earth shakes, whether by war or words, they look to see, does he remain still? Does he trust in God? Does he hold the rope of divine justice firmly, or is he swayed by ambition? We must understand that this role is not for the ambitious. It is for the humble. It is not a trophy, it is a trial. It will demand sacrifice. It will bring loneliness. It will require the courage to speak when silence is safer and the wisdom to be silent when noise is expected. It is not the stage for the performer, but the battlefield for the servant. So before you ask who the next one shall be, ask instead, who has the spine to withstand the weight? Who has been tested, not just in theory, but in fire? Who has spent more time in prayer than in politics? Who has loved this people enough to tell them not only what they want to hear, but what they need to hear? The nation is not in need of a savior. It is in need of a servant. For when the time comes, and the decision must be made, do not be swayed by lineage, title, or charisma. Watch instead for sincerity. Look for endurance. Seek the face of the one who fears God more than he desires power. And in that face, you will see the reflection of what this sacred trust truly demands. Because leadership is not given to the one who reaches for it. It is given to the one who has proven that he can carry it, without ever asking for it. My dear friends, while many outside Iran imagine the selection of the next supreme leader as a simple matter of succession, those who understand the nature of power in the Islamic Republic know better. It is not one man's decision. It is not a public vote. And it is certainly not a process that takes place in the light of day. No, what determines the next supreme leader is a vast and complex machine, forged through decades of revolution, loyalty, secrecy, and survival. And at the heart of that machine are the power players who will shape the future not by announcement, but by influence. On paper, the process is clear. The Assembly of Experts, an 88-member body of Islamic scholars, holds the constitutional authority to appoint the next supreme leader. But understand this, the Assembly does not act in a vacuum. Its members are vetted and approved by the Guardian Council, many of whom are themselves appointed by the supreme leader. This is not accidental. It is a structure designed to preserve ideological continuity. A system built not to entertain open debate, but to protect the very soul of the revolution. And behind the scenes, there are other forces, forces with deep roots and deeper reach. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, does not wear robes or issue fatwas. But their power is felt in every decision. Over the years, the IRGC has grown from a military force into a political and economic empire. They command wealth, media, surveillance, and silent loyalty. When they speak, even the most pious scholars take notice. They are not the deciders, but they are the enforcers. And without their blessing, no successor will rise. Then there are the intelligence networks. The Ministry of Intelligence and the IRGC's intelligence organization are not merely tools of national security, they are architects of perception. They manage the narrative, they control the whisper campaigns, and they ensure that dissenting voices are either neutralized or ignored. Their job is not just to protect the country from foreign spies. It is to protect the system from internal deviation. And in the delicate moments of succession, their role becomes decisive. Clerical elites, those who have spent decades in calm seminaries, those who have served in Iran's judiciary, parliament, or guardian council, also shape the outcome. Some will advise. Some will resist. Others will lend legitimacy through quiet endorsement. These scholars may not command battalions or control ministries, but their words carry the weight of tradition. They are the moral guardians of the revolution's legacy. And though they may not always agree on a name, they will agree on the necessity of preserving the principles of Vilayat-e-Faqih, the guardianship of the jurist. It is a delicate dance, this moment of transition. And it begins long before the public even knows it. Names are floated. Reputations are tested. Trials are imposed quietly to see who bends and who breaks. And always, behind the veil, the current supreme leader's inner circle watches, advises, and influences. They know that stability is everything. That a divided leadership invites foreign meddling. That a weak successor invites rebellion. And so they move carefully, even silently, to align the right factions, neutralize the wrong ones, and guide the assembly of experts toward a consensus. But consensus in this system is not democratic, it is strategic. It is engineered through alignment. The assembly may vote, yes. But only after the path has been cleared. Only after the heavy hands of military power, intelligence control, clerical endorsement, and political survival have all touched the scale. Some ask, why so much secrecy? Because survival demands it. Because the Islamic Republic has enemies at home and abroad who would love nothing more than to exploit a moment of weakness. Because the wounds of 1979 still bleed into today. Because in this system, power is not transferred, it is guarded, protected, and passed like a sacred fire from one careful hand to another. So when the world speculates, when analysts speak in headlines, we must look deeper. The next supreme leader will not be chosen by charisma. He will be chosen by alignment with the revolutionary ideals, with the balance of power, and with the unseen guardians of continuity. It will not be a coronation. It will be a calculation. And in that calculation, the real question is not, who will be chosen, but, who will be trusted. Trusted not only to lead, but to preserve. Not only to rule, but to endure. Not only to speak, but to remain silent when silence protects the nation. This is how the decision will be made. Not in the open, but in the shadows, where legacies are preserved, and where futures are forged. My friends, now that we've looked at the weight of the role and the power structures shaping the decision, let us turn to the individuals, the names quietly circling in the highest halls of Iran's leadership. And though nothing is official, and nothing ever is until the moment arrives, the whispers have grown louder. Two names rise above the rest, carried by their bloodlines, their positions, and their connections within the regime, Mojtaba Khamenei and Ebrahim Raisi. Mojtaba Khamenei, the son of the current supreme leader, is not a public figure in the traditional sense. He gives no speeches, holds no official titles of significance, and rarely appears before cameras. And yet, those who study power in Iran know that his influence is very real. He has long served as a close advisor to his father, deeply embedded within the system, operating behind the scenes. His ties to the IRGC are strong. His relationships with intelligence figures are well established. He is not a name often heard, but he is a presence deeply felt. To many inside the regime, Mojtaba represents continuity. A bridge between the elder Khamenei's legacy and the future of the revolution. He is seen by some as someone who understands the ideology, speaks the language of the clerics, and more importantly, maintains the loyalty of those who matter most, the armed forces and security establishment. But with his name comes a difficult question. Iran's leadership, for all its strict structure, has long claimed to stand against dynastic power. To pass the mantle from father to son would raise accusations both inside and outside Iran. That this Islamic Republic is becoming a monarchy by another name. That perception matters. And it may be Mojtaba's greatest obstacle. Then there is Ebrahim Raisi, the current president of Iran. His rise has not been accidental. He has moved steadily through the ranks, judiciary chief, presidential candidate, and now president. A man whose career is marked by loyalty to the revolution and its supreme leader. Raisi carries the image of a devoted servant of the system. To his supporters, he is pious, firm, and uncompromising. To his critics, he is uncharismatic and inflexible. But to those who decide power in Iran, he may be precisely what they need, a known quantity who can preserve order without shaking the system. Raisi's deep involvement in the judiciary, particularly in moments of brutal crackdowns, makes clear where he stands. His hands are not clean of controversy, and in many circles outside Iran, his name is associated with the darker chapters of the regime's history. But within the Islamic Republic, that may not disqualify him. On the contrary, it may show that he has the stomach for what the role demands, unflinching commitment to preserving the system at all costs. Between the two of them, Mojtaba and Raisi, we see two visions of continuity. One through legacy. The other through bureaucracy. One moves in silence, the other stands on the stage. Both are fiercely loyal to the current regime. Both are trusted by the security state. But both also carry risk. Mojtaba's rise would shake the very claim of anti-dynastic legitimacy that the revolution rests on. His appointment would signal that the system has closed ranks, that power has turned inward to protect itself from change. It would be stability, but the kind that breeds quiet resentment. The kind that might one day erupt from below. Raisi's ascension, while less controversial in structure, brings its own limitations. His presidency has been marked by economic hardship, global isolation, and domestic unrest. While he commands obedience, he does not inspire hope. His leadership may preserve the past, but many question whether it can lead the nation into the future. And so the choice, if it comes down to these two men, is not about ideology. Both are loyal. Both are conservative. Both understand the stakes. The real question is, what does the regime fear more, losing control from above or uprising from below? Will it choose the son who can ensure loyalty at the top? Or the bureaucrat who can absorb pressure from the street? Others may still rise. Unexpected names may emerge in the final hour. But these two, for now, represent the front lines of succession. They are not merely men, they are signals. Mojtaba signals inner circle consolidation. Raisi signals structured, legalistic continuity. But neither signals change. And that, my friends, is what makes this moment so defining. Because whoever is chosen next will not only inherit power. He will inherit pressure. He will face a generation that remembers the promises of reform and has tasted only repression. He will walk a tightrope between protecting the revolution and preventing revolt. In the end, the successor must not only secure the trust of the system, but withstand the judgment of history. My dear friends, now we come to the heart of the matter, not just who will rise, and how they will be chosen, but what it will mean. Because this decision is more than a change in office. It is a crossroads, one that will shape not just the future of Iran, but the direction of the region and the tone of global politics for years to come. Whoever becomes the next supreme leader will inherit a country burdened by both pride and pain. A nation that has endured decades of sanctions, isolation, and internal struggle, but still walks with its head held high. He will not be stepping into a moment of peace, but into a storm. He will not be greeted with ease, but with demands. The people are weary. The youth are restless. The economy is strained. The world watches not with admiration, but with scrutiny. And yet, in that pressure, there lies opportunity. The next leader must decide, will he be a continuation of rigid resistance, guarding the legacy of revolution at the cost of further isolation? Or will he seek a new balance, where strength and survival no longer require silence and suppression? That is the tension at the heart of succession. It is not merely about theology or power. It is about vision. The Islamic Republic was born of a dream, independence, dignity, and justice. But over time, the dream has become heavier to carry. Many young Iranians no longer see themselves reflected in the system. They feel unheard, disconnected, even dismissed. The slogans of yesterday no longer answer the questions of today. The next supreme leader cannot afford to ignore that. If he chooses to rule with only the tools of force, fear, and loyalty, he may find that the walls holding up the house begin to crack from within. And yet, if he moves too fast toward reform, if he opens doors without securing the foundation, he may invite division, chaos, or worse, a loss of control. That is the burden of leadership in this moment. To hold the nation together without silencing it. To protect its values without imprisoning its voice. To resist the West, yes, but not at the cost of strangling the soul of the people. Who leads next will also determine the region's posture, toward America, Israel, Saudi Arabia, and beyond. Will Iran remain a pillar of resistance, arming its allies and standing as a bulwark against U.S. dominance? Or will it gradually open a door, however narrow, toward diplomacy, trade, and cautious engagement? This is not just about rhetoric. It is about missiles. It is about uranium. It is about treaties broken and threats made. The next supreme leader will sit at the center of a nuclear standoff, a collapsing economy, and a shifting Middle East alliance map. His choices will not only define Iran's trajectory, they will shake capitals from Washington to Tel Aviv to Riyadh. But perhaps even more urgent than foreign policy is the question of domestic legitimacy. Can the next leader unify a fragmented society? Can he speak to the devout and the disillusioned alike? Can he make the seminaries feel heard while also making the university students feel seen? That is the true test, not just of intelligence or piety, but of leadership. And yet, this too must be said, the structure will not change overnight. The supreme leader, powerful though he is, still operates within the architecture of a tightly guarded system. Even a leader with reformist leanings must wrestle with conservative institutions, entrenched security forces, and a political culture shaped by 4 decades of revolutionary thinking. But what he can do, what he must do, is set the tone. He can open space. He can model a new kind of firmness, one that defends the nation's principles but listens to its people. In the end, the next supreme leader will either deepen the trench between the rulers and the ruled, or he will begin to build a bridge. That bridge will not be completed in one lifetime, but it can be started with one step. A step toward justice that is not only Islamic in name, but lived in practice. A step toward strength that does not fear dialogue. A step toward unity that does not demand uniformity. Because when the curtain rises on this next chapter, the world will not only ask who the new supreme leader is, they will ask, what kind of Iran he intends to lead. And his answer, written not in words but in actions, will echo far beyond the borders of this nation.